Now, let's talk about another tricky produce item to store, and that's berries. So when I talk about berries, I'm talking about strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, raspberries. You know, the fruit that all of us love. And while we love to buy it and bring it home and eat those berries, they can be really tricky to store because just like with leafy greens, within a few days, they can begin to grow mold and go bad, which means that those berries that you bought for breakfast to last the entire week, well, they may be thrown out within just a couple of days. Well, it doesn't have to be that way. Instead, I'm going to teach you 2 tricks that's going to extend the life of your berries so that when you buy your berries and bring them home, you can be sure that they'll last you the entire week so you can enjoy them for lunches, snacks, breakfast, dinner, whatever you're buying those berries for. So when it comes to berries, I recommend washing them in advance. Now, not just with water, but with actually a vinegar bath. And I'm going to show you how to make that in just a minute. Now, the other thing you need to keep in mind is that strawberries, blueberries, and blackberries are hardy enough to wash in advance. And I recommend doing that with the vinegar bath. But raspberries are a bit too delicate to wash in advance. And so when it comes to raspberries, you just have to keep in mind that you're going to need to plan to use these pretty quickly, within a few days. But my second trick I'm going to show you is going to work with the raspberries. But when it comes to washing in advance, don't wash your raspberries in advance. Okay, so let's get started with my vinegar bath. So I have my salad spinner here, which you guys saw earlier. Remember, here's the top. We use this to wash leafy greens. Well, I'm going to use this salad spinner yet again now to actually wash my berries. And this is why investing in a salad spinner is so important, in my opinion. So I have my water, and I'm going to combine about 3 cups of water to a 1/4 cup of white vinegar. Now, I'm using white vinegar just because it's cheap. I use it for cleaning as well. But if you have apple cider vinegar and prefer to use that, you're welcome to use that as well. So I'm going to add, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it here, about a 1/4 cup of some just plain old distilled white vinegar. And then to this vinegar bath, I'm going to add my berries. I'm actually going to add both my strawberries and my blueberries at the exact same time just to save some time here. Now, why use a vinegar bath? Well, I use a vinegar bath because the vinegar is actually going to keep the mold from growing on the berries too quickly. So as you know, the problem with berries is that mold kind of overtakes them. And that's because moisture, again, just like with leafy greens, is the enemy. So when moisture overtakes those greens, mold quickly grows. Well, the vinegar is going to keep any mold spores that are currently on the berries from overtaking the berries too quickly. And then we're going to use a second trick, which I'll show you in a minute, to actually keep the rest of the mold and the moisture away. Okay, so now that my berries are in this vinegar bath, I'm going to let them sit for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll be able to rinse them off and proceed on. So now that my berries have been soaking for about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to take my berries over to the sink, pour the water out, and rinse the berries off because I don't want to leave any kind of vinegar taste on them. You don't have to rinse them off, but I prefer to do this. And now I'm going to bring them back to the counter and I'm ready to store them. So now that my berries are rinsed off, I'm going to lay out a towel because, like I said, moisture is the enemy with berries. So I want to make sure my berries are fully dry and that there's no water left on my berries before I store them. So I'm going to take my berries and I'm going to scoop them out with my hand. Just the strawberries to begin with because they're kind of heavy. And I'm going to lay them on my towel here. I just have a clean dish towel, nothing fancy. Going to lay them out here so that they can fully dry. This probably take an hour, maybe 2. So, you know, do this when you have some time. Go clean your house, go watch a Netflix show, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to lay my berries out, make sure they're spread out enough so that, you know, they're able to dry. You don't want them in multiple layers laying on top of each other. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to let my berries rest here and then I'll be ready to store them in a container, which is the next trick to storing berries that I'll show you. So now that my berries are fully dry, there's no moisture left on my berries, I'm ready to store my berries. So the first trick was to make a vinegar bath and to wash your berries in advance. Remember, except for raspberries because they're too delicate. The second trick to storing berries is to use a container, a glass container I recommend, with a lid, and line that container before you add your berries, your washed berries, to the container with a paper towel. Now again, moisture is the enemy. So this is going to absorb that moisture and to keep it off the berries. At least it's the best possible solution. So we're going to add the berries just to this container with the paper towel lined on the bottom. Now here's the thing. This paper towel is going to get wet over the next few days. It's going to absorb that moisture. It's going to do its job. So if you find that your paper towel in a few days is really wet and damp, I recommend taking the berries out, spending a few minutes doing this, and lining it again with a fresh paper towel. This is just going to extend the life of your berries so that you're getting your money's worth. You're not throwing away berries prematurely. Now, one note I should make is that if you want to save some time throughout the week and do some prep, you are welcome to cut off the leafy green tops so that they're ready to go. But I don't recommend actually like cutting your strawberries fully, like cutting them into little chunks. I find that they go bad pretty fast if you do that. But it is 100% okay to actually cut off these greens so that in the morning or when you're packing lunch or whatever you're using your berries for, you can easily just cut them up. Remember, they're already washed. You don't have to wash them. So if you cut the tops off, that's just one more step to save you time throughout the week. Okay, so let me grab my lid here, put that on my strawberries. These are ready for the fridge now. Now I'm going to take my other container, again, line it with a paper towel, and take my blueberries, and do the exact same thing again. So for strawberries, when they are stored like this and have been washed in a vinegar bath, I find that they'll keep for about 5 to 7 days, maybe longer, depending on when your berries were picked and how mushy they are already. And for blueberries, I actually find that these will keep for even up to 2 weeks sometimes. Again, this all depends on how fresh your berries are. I mean, if they've already been, transported across the country or across the world sometimes, and they're already, days old at that point, they may not last a full 2 weeks. But if they're pretty fresh, then they'll definitely last you a couple of weeks using this method. Now with raspberries, you'll use the exact same method. You just will not wash them in advance. You'll use the paper towel line trick. And you'll want to eat those pretty quickly. So in about 3 to 4 days is my recommendation, because again, raspberries are just super delicate. And so now these are ready to go in the fridge as well. So I have my berries, and I'm also going to do my raspberries just like I showed you here. Just remember, don't wash these first.